I don't know. How do you feel about the nostalgia bait aspects?
I mean, we talked about this in the main part of the episode, in that it was handled a lot better than most people handle it.
It could have been very much worse, I think.
It could have been a whole lot worse, and it could have been just really cringe. And it wasn't.
I do feel like
charming,
maybe it was a little.
silly.
I think maybe it was a little excessive.
Yes, I'll grant
but I
that.
think it was. I think it was excessive in the context where I'm already saying I would have liked to have cut a half an hour out of this movie anyway. Like,
yeah.
I think if you'd cut out the right half hour, you'd have cut out a lot of that nostalgia bait stuff, and then it wouldn't have felt so excessive. And more importantly, the story would have just been tighter and just better and moved into the stuff that was interesting quicker, and then you wouldn't have really felt it. Like, it wouldn't have really felt like, ooh, a PKE meter. Let's walk around with this for 10 minutes, and then let's have the mom walk around with it for 10 minutes. Just like, okay, just cut some of that. Like, we don't need all of that. It's fine.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. But as far as can studios be blamed for continuing to do this so long as it's lucrative? No. Like, they're responding to market signals, and so long as
it's y'all who are responsible.
It's you, Home Slice. Like, it's just you. If you don't want all of these nostalgia bait hacky movies, don't go see them. Like, but you also can't fault production studios from continuing to make them, so long as it's basically the film equivalent of printing money. Like, that's an us problem, not a them problem.
Yeah, I used to have this idea before I worked in journalism. I used to have this idea that like basically the news media like really decided what stories everybody was going to talk about and what they weren't going to talk about. And then I worked in video journalism and creating video content for news. And I very quickly was disabused of this notion because, like, I would put up stuff that I thought was important news. Things like at the time, this is like 2011, things about like the Libya invasion and you know, like what I thought were really important issues to talk about, like the 10-year anniversary of 9/11. Like, there were all these things that I really wanted to do stuff about that I thought were really important to talk about. And nobody cared. Nobody watched those videos. Like, nobody did anything. But then when I, would do a celebrity interview, or when I would do a, something that was like a really political, like hot button political issue, whatever, like, then that stuff got all of the views, right? Like, then you could get hundreds of thousands, millions, whatever. And, you quickly realize that, like, it's the consumer that is driving a lot of this. Now, like, that doesn't mean that the news doesn't bear some responsibility. Like, and I the Matrix episode that I kind of mentioned at the beginning of this podcast is like, it's all about media, not only, maybe not just media bias, in fact, maybe not even mostly media bias, but more importantly, media just incompetence, maybe more than anything else. It's media botching stories. It's allowing stories to be driven by their narratives. But the thing that's really consistently like does and doesn't work based on the consumer is the sensationalism. Like, it's if you want to know why so much of our news is so sensational and sort of unreliable, a lot of that blame has to do with the fact that, like, they get good ratings when they do a story that is just, really, really salacious. Like, those are the stories that get rated. Now, specifically what stories they tell, how they frame the stories, all that kind of stuff, that's still a choice that all the news people have to make. And I guess the reason that I brought that up is because I think that similarly, film studios have a choice as to what nostalgia to mine, right? Like, if nostalgia bait is going to work, there are ways that they can do it better or worse, and there are ways that they can still decide what nostalgia to pull from, and then whether or not they want to wreck it. Like, right, obviously, like 2016 Ghostbusters was nostalgia bait as well, but it was handled really, really badly. You know, this could have been handled, Ghostbusters Afterlife, I think, could have been handled better, but it was handled much better than the 2016 version. And I think if people are happy with it, it's because, like, you know, Sony took the toys that they wanted Sony to play with, and they didn't just break them and throw them in the garbage, right? Or they didn't, let's say they didn't throw the lightsaber over the shoulder. Let's say that, right?
Yeah.
When you throw the lightsaber over the shoulder, like, you're kind of telling fans that they don't matter, while at the same time mining the nostalgia to get them to go see the movie. So it's like you're trying to have your cake and eat it too. Like you're trying to go like, this is, you know, we're absolutely going to take this thing that you love and that has a name that's very familiar to everybody, and we're going to squeeze every last dollar we can out of it, but also we're going to treat it really disrespectfully while we do, which turns out doesn't make a lot of fans very happy.
Fancy that.
Yeah, who knew? But I think you could do it better and, like, treat these things with a little bit more. If you're going to do nostalgia, you know, either do them a little bit more subtly and treat them with a little bit more respect. And then I actually think if you do that while actually focusing on telling a really good story, I don't think anybody has this debate. Like, I don't even think we debate about it. I think you just look at the nostalgia and go, oh, that's a great callback. Because it's a good story on its own. It's just a nice callback that you go, oh, cool. Wow, I got that Easter egg or whatever, you know? I think historically Marvel's done this pretty well, although I think they're getting a little bit too bloated to be able to handle this that well anymore. But, you know, in general, okay, yeah, I'll take Shang-Chi as an example of this. Trevor Slattery showing up, Ben Kingsley's character showing up in that movie is an awesome callback. Like, that is a very
really
good, because it's just like a bit character that is meant to be like, just sort of wreck your expectations in Iron Man 3 and does it pretty well. And he's so, you know, like, he's so memorable from Iron Man 3, but then he's not in anything since. He's nowhere to be found in the MCU until Shang-Chi. And now you're in a movie that deals with the 10 rings. Of course he's been imprisoned by the guy there, so that makes perfect sense. And then just bringing him back, it's like, oh, this guy, right?
Yeah.
Like,
and fun fact, I recently watched Shang-Chi again. I watched it with the kids and my husband because they didn't go with me to the theater when I went to watch it for this show.
Yeah.
And I was happy to do it because it handled the things that it handled that well. Yeah. Like, it holds up on rewatch. I'm just going to say. Good. Still fun.
I've been kind of thinking about it because it's available just on Disney Plus and I just watch it.
Yeah.